Good morning, my name is Tang Supanyapek, and for my topic, I have chosen child labor on the issues that can be found within Phnom Penh. This is my overview. First, I'll have an introduction on child labor. Second, I'll give the difference between child labor and child work. Third, I'll give more information on factors of child labor. Fourth, I'll have the negative effects of child labor. And fifth, I have conducted a survey on child labor awareness. And sixth will be the solution to the problem. So for my introduction, I have provided the definition of child labor. So what is child labor? Child labor refers to a type of work where children are working in hazardous situations, referring to places where children's health and safety are at risk. So the workplace such as brick kilns, brick factories, fishing factories, domestic work, and a variety of plantations may be a danger to the children. This is a picture of children working in a brick kiln. As you can see, he is working hard to stack the bricks. Normally, children his age are going to school while he is laboring and slaving away to make a living. This is a boy. His name is Chamrun. He is a 6-year-old boy who has to sell cans and bottles to help his mom provide for the family. So 6 years old, but he already has to do labor, and work to provide for his family as well. Up next, I have the differences between child labor and child work. So in Cambodia or in Phnom Penh, there seems to be a misconception between child labor and child work. Even though the two are quite different, the only similarities that they have is the children are subjected to do work. How it is different is that child labor are not required. The children are working in hazardous environments. It is not contractual work. They also do not gain any sort of education, and their health is at risk. While child work, they have a suitable environment for working, and they have a healthy development as well as proper education, and their health is not at risk. These two misconceptions may cause people to be less aware of child labor, since they might think child labor is just a children working. Next, I have the factors of child labor. There are poverty, lack of education, lack of awareness, and family hardships. So poverty is actually the root of all problems found in child labor, such as lack of education and family hardships. By family hardships, I mean that some cases families may fall into debt and they can't repay their debt, which as the years go by, the debt will grow higher and higher, causing the family to go into poverty, in which they might resort to child labor to help the burden that they have, as well as lack of education, poverty. With no money, the families can't send the children to gain an education. So with no education, they'll resort to labor in order to keep their family afloat. This is why poverty can lead to improper education, improper health care, insufficient development, and even starvation. So up next, I have the negative effects of child labor. So child labor can be physically and mentally harmful. Why? Because children are subjected to work in areas such as the brick kiln, in which can be harmful and cause injuries. It can make the children disabled because it is a dangerous workplace. Here, children are working in hazardous environments such as factories and brick kilns. As I've said before, it is very dangerous. They do not gain an education. Because of child labor, there is no time for them to go get an education. In some cases, they resort to child labor because they cannot afford an education. They also live in an unhealthy lifestyle, such as working in factories that can make the children come into contact with dangerous chemicals. They are also at risk of permanent injuries. Working in dangerous areas can make them disabled. They are also unable to develop properly. So up next, I have a survey that I made on child labor awareness in Phnom Penh, in which have gained ages from 12 to 45, even older. Yeah. As you can see, I've gained a lot of responses coming from people all over the districts in Phnom Penh. The most popular being Rusay Cao and Tulkop. So I asked the question, have you ever seen any form of child labor before? 76.1% of people said yes. And how familiar they are with the issue? 58.2% of the people said yes. So this confirms the fact that yes, child labor is a problem and an issue in Cambodia. I asked, do you think child labor has any negative effects toward the children? 91% of people said yes. For this question, I've listed some factors that might contribute to child labor, and the most voted one was poverty. Since poverty is the root of all these other problems, it makes sense that poverty would be the most voted one. For my next question, I asked if the people were aware of any local programs on child labor. 55.6% of people said no. This goes to show the lack of awareness that can be found within Phnom Penh. Not a lot of people knows of the local programs that speak up against child labor, which is very concerning. Up next, I asked if they were aware of any laws that protect the children from being forced to go to work. 61.1% of people said yes. Would they participate in a campaign to raise awareness about child labor? 63.9% of people said yes. As you can see, there are people willing to help and raise awareness. It's just since the lack of promotion of the campaigns, people don't really know much about the local programs. Up next, I asked, would you report a case of child labor if you witness one? 52.8% of people said yes, and 45.8% of people said they were not sure. This is very concerning because I'm sure this is where the misconception of child labor and child work comes from. People might see the act of child labor and think that it is actually child work. This is why people might not be sure to report a child labor case. That's why it's very important for people to understand the concept of child labor. For my next question, I've asked, have you ever been approached by a child asking for work or money? 77.8% of people said yes. This is actually a form of labor, since the children would do this, ask for money instead of gaining an education. So here are the solutions. These are the suggestions that I've gotten from my survey. They've given some really good suggestions. First, we have share real kids' stories. So, by sharing the stories that the kids have endured about the child labor, they can the people can sympathize with the kids and understand how draining and horrible child labor is. Making it visible is very important, especially with a problem such as child labor. Giving a visual of child labor can push people to raise more awareness and join campaigns, as well as getting schools involved, such as involving the topic of child labor into school programs and having talks or art or fairs that can bring up the awareness of child labor. For this next suggestion, there was one point that really struck out against the rest, is that encourage people to gain confidence in standing up for the victims. In Cambodia or in Phnom Penh, child labor can be seen everywhere, especially the children asking for money along the streets. However, people don't really speak up on those matters because of the lack of awareness and how it's affecting the children, or they don't really acknowledge it. This is why having campaigns and raising awareness on this matter is very important, so people can sympathize and understand the importance of how a child's health and well-being can be affected through labor. So this is the end of my presentation on child labor in Phnom Penh. Thank you so much for listening.